Hello, welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA, and my guest today is Richard Lambie, and Richard is a professional fiduciary. Today we're going to be talking about the role of the professional fiduciary. Thanks for joining me today, Richard.
You're welcome.
So the first question really is, why would someone choose a professional fiduciary or a trust company instead of a family member or a friend as a conservator or a trustee or an executor?
Well, again, thank you, Mike, for inviting me to come in today to chat. There are a lot of diverse reasons about why a professional fiduciary would be invited in, would be asked to come in and act in the place of a family member. Family members quite often have skills. Some of them may be attorneys, some of them may be accountants, and very well-meaning people. A professional fiduciary is an independent person. So what will happen with them is that they're impartial between the potential beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. So very often the family member is not used to dealing with other professionals. They may be very skilled in their own line of work, but they're not used to dealing with a team. They may end up having to deal with the realtors and a whole group of other people. Professional fiduciary has special training and a background in dealing with a whole variety of issues relating to probate estates, trusts, conservatorships, powers of attorney, advance directives, all of those different types of documents that we get asked to come into. Mm-hmm. Probably on a percentage basis, a professional fiduciary may get involved in 5% of the total cases. So usually it would be a family member. A bank can sometimes be a very good solution where the assets are appropriate and the overall management is appropriate to use a bank or something like that. Mm-hmm. So really, as you've identified, the three groups would be the friend or family member, professional fiduciary, or a bank trust company.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if you've been named a trustee or an executor and you don't have experience or education in that area, what are some things to think about before accepting that job?
Well, you're absolutely right, Mike. You want to be very careful before you accept a job. And I just like to make that point that if you are named in a will or a trust, it is a nomination. It's not an absolute duty. So you should consider whether or not you should dive into that. But you should really look at the skills. Very often with a professional fiduciary, there are family disputes. Mm-hmm. So some of the situations, there may be a death in the family, there could be a disability, there could be very serious dysfunction, there could be a second family. So if the named executor or trustee is part of a second family, they should consider what the interaction would be with the first family. So there are a lot of very diverse reasons as to why the family member should be very careful stepping into that role.
Yeah. So there's two things that come to mind to me related to this. So one is to be aware if you are named as a trustee and you don't have that background, to be aware that there's help there. So that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You have attorneys to help you. You have a CPA, hopefully, that you'll have on board to help you out and so forth. And in some cases, you might even be a co-trustee with somebody like yourself. So there are other ways that you can be involved and to get that guidance that you really need. The other is that you pointed out, the thing about the second family I think is really critical. It's like an accident waiting to happen, right? As long as mom and dad are alive, we've got some way of keeping maybe I should say mom or dad is alive. There's that peacemaker in the family that sort of keeps things, but then once that referee is gone, boom, now you've got this conflict that needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And very often with the death or the disability of an elder, it raises all the emotional levels. And as you say, the glue that held the family together may dissipate, and the tremendous history that goes decades back could come to the forefront. And again, it would be very important for the family member or the family members that are involved with that to realize they have to assemble a team of professionals. Having a good CPA who's prepared mom and dad's tax returns, or very often, as I've done with your services, bring in a skilled professional to look at all of the tax issues is absolutely essential. People try to avoid using the services of attorneys, and that can also be a horrible, horrible trap. You want to make sure that deeds to real estate are correctly handled, that there are things that spring immediately to mind, like a parent-to-child transfer to maintain the old property tax basis when property is inherited by children. So there are a lot of pitfalls that the family members can get into that without a good team of professionals, either on the investment side, on the legal side, or on the accounting side, can really be a terrible trap for the family members to get into. But if they have a roadmap, they can really get on with it. They have to be motivated. They have to stick with it. One of the little quotes that I had recently in a conversation with some family members is that they were absolutely beside themselves because the attorney hadn't taken care of something. What the family members should appreciate is if they are the named trustees, they have to take care of it. It is not the sole responsibility of the attorney, the accountant, or the investment professional. As the named trustees or executors or conservators, it's their absolute sole responsibility.
Right. And they need this guidance, though, about what needs to be done. And there are just a lot of details that need to be handled when you're handling an estate or a trust. And so, there's a tension. That's part of the reason why you have to get these people in. And the problem is, like you said, sometimes people, they're trying to be cheap, whatever. They're trying to save those dollars, but they may be, what do they say, tripping over the dimes, trying to get to the dollars or whatever. So penny wise and pound foolish, as the old saying goes.
Right.
Well, what standards does a professional fiduciary have to meet in California in order to be licensed? And how many trusts do you need to manage before you're subject to these requirements?
Just going from memory on that, if you're managing for non-family members, this is outside of your own family, 2 or more trusts, then you should look into getting licensed. And in terms of the background for licensing, the rules are very clearly set out. The Department of Consumer Affairs has a fiduciary bureau, so any member of the public can log on to that and find out the qualifications, the entry requirements for a fiduciary. But very often, if I can go off track in technical terms and give you what I've seen over the years, I've been involved with my professional association, the Professional Fiduciary Association of California, PFAC, for the last 13, 14 years. A great number of our members used to work for bank trust companies, public guardians offices. They used to have social work backgrounds. They've dealt with a lot of real estate or securities, that type of thing. So very often, before they even look at what are the educational qualifications, the fiduciary will have a good experience, a good work background to pull on in order to get started out. But technically, the fiduciary needs to get in and set up with 30 hours of education in fiduciary type subject matter, and that should be a combination of the estate side, which is all the financial aspects, and then the person side, which is more the conservatorship, personal care, and that type of thing. So once they've achieved the 30 hours worth of education, they can get on with the application. There's background checking, fingerprints run through the state and federal bureaus, and then if all of that clears, then the individual would be eligible to take the test to become a fiduciary. And it's a fairly comprehensive test, not a huge benchmark, but it does weed out some of the people. And so once the education is complete, the test is completed, and the person has the requisite background in terms of education, degrees, or work experience, then they can qualify as a licensed California professional fiduciary.